Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to mypillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. mypillow.com. Promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Welcome into today's show. Glad to have you join me. It was a whirlwind of a day as both houses of Congress yesterday agreed to send a bill to President Donald Trump that will release all files related to Jeffrey Epstein to the public. I have the latest details for you in today's show. Some excitement in the White House yesterday. President Trump accused ABC's Mary Bruce of peddling fake news and even suggested the Federal Communications Commission should revoke the network's broadcast license. I have that clip for you as well. South Carolina Representative Nancy Mace's reality TV meltdown kind of blows up in court, and her ex just dropped a legal atomic bomb on the situation. This is all detailed in a Facebook post by Occupied Democrats who have obtained a copy of the latest court rulings. And for the first time in about 20 years or so, a South Carolina Supreme Court justice finds himself defending his seat, seeking another 10-year term. We have the details on that for you as well.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, you know, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
The Epstein political earthquake rolled right through Washington again yesterday. This time, something kind of interesting happened. Senate Republicans did not block the vote. In fact, they opened the runway for the Epstein disclosure bill to head straight to President Trump's desk. And let me tell you, this is a pretty big turnaround from just a week ago. Capitol Hill Insider said no chance of making it through both chambers of the U.S. Congress, and that's exactly what happened yesterday. But when the House passes something 427-1, and when President Trump himself says, we have nothing to hide, release it, and suddenly the winds shift. Wow. So here's what happened yesterday. Chuck Schumer marched onto the Senate floor demanding immediate passage of the Epstein Files resolution. No amendments, no delays, no changes. He said Republicans must not bury it in committee or slow walk it. Now, he knows all about slow walking because he's the master at slow walking. But here's the twist. Republicans didn't delay it. They didn't try to bury it. They didn't try to block it. The bill didn't even require a full roll call vote. It sailed right through. And now, as soon as the House clerks transfer the paperwork and do all the signing and stuff, it's going to land right on President Trump's resolute desk. This resolution, led by Representative Thomas Massey, Representative Ro Khanna, is a rare bipartisan alliance forcing the Department of Justice to do several things. Number one, release all unclassified Epstein and Maxwell documents. Make them public. Make them searchable. Make them downloadable. And do it within 30 days of President Trump signing the bill. Now, your average politician would panic over something like this. President Trump, he just said, bring it on. Now, he called it a Democrat hoax, of course, said that they have nothing on him, predicted the Democrats would regret pushing this narrative in the first place, kind of like they probably regret pushing Russia, Russia, Russia. And the real fireworks started when the president erupted on an ABC reporter yesterday after she pressed him on issues involving Saudi Arabia, as the Saudi crown prince was sitting right there in the Oval Office. Trump accused ABC's Mary Bruce of peddling fake news and even suggested the Federal Communications Commission should revoke the network's broadcast license. Here's the exchange.
Mr. President, why wait for Congress to release the Epstein files? Why not just do it now?
You know, it's not the question that I mind, it's your attitude. I think you are a terrible reporter. It's the way you ask these questions. You start off with a man who's highly respected, asking him a horrible, insubordinate, and just a terrible question. And you could even ask that same exact question nicely. You're all psyched up. Somebody psychs you over at ABC. They're going to psych. You're a terrible person and a terrible reporter. As far as the Epstein files is, I have nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. I threw him out of my club many years ago because I thought he was a sick pervert. And I guess I turned out to be right. But you know who does have? Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, who ran Harvard, was with him every single night, every single weekend. They lived together. They went to his island many times. I never did. Andrew Weissman, I hear. All these guys were friends of his. You don't even talk about those people. You just keep going on the Epstein files. And what the Epstein is a Democrat hoax to try and get me not to be able to talk about the $21 trillion that I talked about today. It's a hoax. Now, I just got a little report, and I put it in my pocket, of all the money that he's given to Democrats. He gave me none, zero, no money to me. But he gave money to Democrats. And people are wise to your hoax. And ABC's, your company, your crappy company, is one of the perpetrators. And I'll tell you something.
So why not just sign it now?
I think the license should be taken away from ABC because your news is so fake and it's so wrong. And we have a great commissioner, the chairman, who should look at that, because I think when you come in and when you're 97% negative to Trump and then Trump wins the election in a landslide, that means obviously your news is not credible and you're not credible as a reporter. So I've answered your question. You should go and look at the Democrats who received money from Epstein, who spent their time. Larry Summers was with him all the time. That creep of the fund guy was with him all the time. What's his name?
Reid Hoffman.
Who? Reid Hoffman. I don't know Reid Hoffman, but I know he spends a lot of money on the radical left. Reid Hoffman, in my opinion, should be under investigation. He's a sleazebag. And those are the people, but they don't get any press, they don't get any news, and you're not after the radical left because you're a radical left network. But I think the way you ask a question with the anger and the meanness is terrible. You ought to go back and learn how to be a reporter. No more questions from you.
What do you think? You think she will ever get the opportunity to ask another question among the White House News Corps? I'm not thinking. I'm not going to bet on her future there. So here's what was happening behind the scenes. Senate Republicans were doing what they call the hotline process, basically polling every senator to see if there was a consensus. Majority Leader John Thune gave the quiet part out loud. When a bill passes the House 427-1, when the president says he'll sign it, changing it isn't even in the cards. It's not part of the discussion. Republicans still want guardrails to protect victims' names, and rightly so, but not at the cost of looking like they're shielding Epstein's accomplices. And the world is suspect of this whole thing anyway. So at this point, it's time to get it out there, because let's be honest, there are people in Washington, there are people in Hollywood, there are people on Wall Street who do not want sunlight on this. Democrats thought this bill would paint Donald Trump into a corner, but the opposite has happened. Trump flipped the script, Republicans unified, the House nearly voted unanimously, one vote against it, and the Senate let it through without a fight. Suddenly, Senator Chuck Schumer, who was hoping to embarrass Republicans, accidentally fast-tracked a bill that his own caucus isn't exactly thrilled about. Because once these files are public, we might learn a few things neither party wants to talk about. Because I got a sneaking suspicion there's going to be some stuff in there about some Democrats, too. What about you? You think so? Text me, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. Leave me a message on the MyPillow message line, 864-477-JOEY. 864-477-5639. Always use promo code Joey. When you go to MyPillow.com and get some great deals, it's not too early to start Christmas shopping, folks. And Mike Lindell has some great prices for you when you throw my name around. Just use promo code Joey on everything you buy when you go to mypillow.com. And look, Americans deserve the truth. Americans have been wanting to know the truth on the whole Epstein thing for many, many years now. So here's the bottom line. Jeffrey Epstein preyed on the vulnerable. Ghislaine Maxwell enabled him. Powerful people in elite circles helped them operate for decades, unquestioning. It's long past time for some transparency. President Trump says release everything. Congress says release everything. The victims deserve the truth, not politics, not a bunch of redactions, not selective leaks, but the truth. And in the next 30 days, I think that's exactly what we're going to get. Joey Hudson here, and this is it. PhD Weight Loss is running their best deal ever for Black Friday, and it's happening right now. They're waiving your consultation fee, adding 2 free weeks to your program, and even covering the cost of your food. Just mention the promo code BESTDEAL when you call, and you'll get a discount I can't even say on the air. Every year, the holidays hit, the pounds creep on, and by January, we're all back at the gym. But what if you could finish the year already feeling lighter, stronger, and more confident? That's what happens with PhD Weight Loss. Their metabolic reset system teaches your body to burn fat first, naturally and sustainable. I lost over 30 pounds with PhD, and it changed everything. My coach helped me through travel, holidays, parties. I actually enjoyed the season and lost weight. So don't wait for Black Friday only. They're offering their best deal ever. Consultation free waived. 2 free weeks. There are 5 steps to reset the scale book, and your food is absolutely covered. Call 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900. Mention best deal or visit online at myphdweightloss.com. Several people forwarded me links to a post on Facebook. And when I first got it, I thought, what is this? Because the Facebook profile is that of Occupy Democrats. I thought, why are people sending me this? Why do they think I'd be interested in Occupy Democrats? But then as I started reading it, I realized it's about our very own Nancy Mace in South Carolina. So let me just read some of the posts for you. Breaking, it says. Nancy Mace's reality TV meltdown blows up in court, and her ex just dropped a legal atomic bomb. It goes on to write, South Carolina's MAGA chaos machine, Representative Nancy Mace, has officially turned her personal life, her political career, and now the court system into one giant flaming dumpster fire, and her ex-fiancé just poured gasoline on it. In a pair of explosive legal filings and a viral social media blast, tech entrepreneur Patrick Bryant laid out a jaw-dropping timeline that reads less like the life of a sitting member of Congress and more like the plot of a low-budget Bravo spinoff. They go on the right, but unlike reality TV, this one involves hacking, blackmail, defamation, Jane Doe conspiracies, restraining orders, and an alleged plan to steal real estate by weaponizing sexual misconduct claims. And they claim the receipts are brutal. Evidently, they got copies of the court filings, which I assume is pretty much public information anyway once it's filed with the court. They say that Bryant's new filings meticulously details the lawsuit that's accusing Representative Nancy Mace of hacking his phone. He says they installing data extraction software on his personal computers, that she dug through deleted files and then, according to him, bragged to a political consultant that she planned to use the material to get my houses. Now, you may recall that part of this equation is that, of course, they were set to be married, and they had purchased a couple of pretty nice homes together. Now, he of course, is not taking this lying down. He is fighting back. This is one of the men whom Representative Nancy Mace stood on the floor of the House and made some pretty bad accusations, public accusations. According to filings, Ms. Mace allegedly refused to report any supposed wrongdoing to authorities because she wasn't interested in justice. She allegedly wanted leverage. She allegedly wanted the property, the houses. And apparently she also wanted her free Caribbean vacation, which the lawsuit claims she said to the consultant while insisting she was afraid of Mr. Bryant. That fear didn't seem to stop her from packing a swimsuit and being ready to go, though. All right, so the suit further alleges that Nancy Mace helped recruit, quote, Jane Doe, who a judge just ruled must now be identified by her real name, Alexis Allie Berg, and coordinated with another woman, Melissa Britton, to revive a years-old allegation from 2018 tied to a poolside party nobody reported at the time. The filing says the alleged accuser had no independent memory of the event until Mace allegedly got involved. And Britton, whose claim was written in something called a diary email rather than in like a police report, allegedly kept her story hidden for over 5 years, again, until Ms. Mace came calling. They write it's a conspiracy worthy of a bad political thriller, except these are sworn statements. Mace's response, according to Occupy Democrats, she's deflecting, she's attacking, she's doing everything she can, but taking it seriously. So when asked for comment, Mace delivered her typical response. It's almost as if Patrick Bryant is trying to write me another check, she said. She also tried again to invoke Jane Doe while ignoring that her own legal team just got tens of thousands of dollars in sanctions because a judge concluded they improperly targeted Mace. In their post, Occupy Democrat says this is what happens when your public strategy is, number one, turn every personal feud into a congressional speech, 2, call your ex and his friends predators on the House floor, and 3, hope nobody notices the allegations keep changing. They say, spoiler, people noticed. On Monday, Ms. Mace filed an affidavit accusing Bryant of dodging service in a civil dispute. Bryant responded with a legal haymaker, a temporary restraining order against the sitting Congresswoman. Then he took to X saying this, I filed a temporary restraining order against Nancy Ruth Mace in hopes of shutting her up, which I know the whole world appreciates. If that wasn't enough, he added, for 2 years, she has used her platforms to defame me while producing nothing to support her allegations. And the kicker? None of that should be tolerated from a sitting Congresswoman who has to lead by example, he said. Tell that to the woman who once stood on the House floor and turned a real estate dispute into a congressional spectacle. I don't think she cares. Here's what seems to be the common thread in this whole debacle. Everyone around Nancy Mace, according to Occupy Democrats and according to her ex, eventually gets burned. This scandal has dragged in a political consultant, an ex-fiancé, a Jane Doe whose anonymity is now gone, a witness who is now public, an unrelated man, Eric Bowman, arrested in a separate domestic abuse case, multiple law firms, lots of checks being written to lawyers, and the courts themselves, which have issued sanctions, rulings, and now restraining orders. And at the center of it all, Representative Nancy Mace, a woman who has, according to the Democrats, become so consumed with attention, drama, and self-inflicted crisis that Charleston County now feels like the set of Real Housewives of Congress, Low Country edition. Again, that's the Occupied Democrats' wording, not mine. Nancy Mace ran on being a new kind of Republican, they say. It turns out she meant a new kind of chaos. Bryant's lawsuit and restraining order don't just expose a personal meltdown. They outline a pattern, manipulation, blackmail, conspiracies, defamation, abuse of office, and weaponizing the court system. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that the Occupied Democrats, of course, aren't very big fans of Nancy Mace. On the text line, Susan from Hartwell writes, churches should not be off limits to ICE agents. In Romans 13:1, Paul wrote, let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God. I was asked the question yesterday because, of course, this has been one of the big complaints coming out of Charlotte and other areas of the country, that ICE has been staking out churches, houses of worship, in order to detain some of the illegals. And, of course, some of the usual detractors are saying that's not playing by the rules, that ICE shouldn't be allowed near churches. Texter Tony says, Joey, it's all about the midterms. Now that the Epstein files are going to be released, what do you think is going to be the next distraction? Tony, there's probably a group of Democrats in a room right now trying to figure that out, because the Epstein files didn't exactly work the way Chuck Schumer thought they would. When It was unanimously passed by the House and again by the Senate, and President Trump is going to sign it. Faye says, Joey, I listened to the Epstein victims, and most of these were 14 or so when they were victimized. Let me just say, my mom knew where we kids were 24/7, day and night. These victims were brutal to President Trump, but in my opinion, there are plenty who should have been crushed before Trump. And, of course, MTG was their biggest life. Wonder how she could handle Sharia law. Thankfully, Epstein is now receiving his reward unless he asks for forgiveness from our Savior. Well, this next story, and thank you for those texts, by the way. You can always text me. You can email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. You can leave me a message on the MyPillow message line, 864-477-JOEY. All right, so this next story is like a scene out of Breaking Bad. But the problem is it's very real, and it happened right here on American soil. Authorities in Colorado are calling it the largest fentanyl bust in the state's history. A jaw-dropping 1.7 million counterfeit fentanyl pills found not in a cartel compound, not at the border, but in a storage unit that was auctioned off to the public. Wow. Now let that sink in. Somebody bid on an abandoned storage locker, probably hoping to find some furniture or collectibles, and instead stumbled onto 198 kilos of pills, 12 kilos of fentanyl powder, and a couple pounds of meth for good measure. They called it in right away, and thank God they did. Thank God they weren't killed by being exposed to it. The discovery happened in Highlands Ranch. It's a suburb just south of Denver, Colorado. And law enforcement officials say that this isn't just Colorado's biggest haul. It's the 6th largest fentanyl bust in the history of the U.S. According to the DEA, this wasn't just a warehouse of drugs. This was a ticking time bomb. We're talking about enough fentanyl to kill tens of millions of people. A few milligrams of this stuff is lethal. Imagine what 1.7 million counterfeit pills would do. Body cam footage from the scene shows deputies opening a bin and literally gasping at the size of the stash. One officer summed it up pretty well when he said, "This is an absolute metric bleep, bleep, bleep ton of fentanyl." Turns out the original owner of that storage unit had already been arrested back in April by the DEA, which led to the unit being abandoned and eventually auctioned off. That kind of tells you how deep this trafficking network runs, doesn't it? And how close it can get to just any normal community. Colorado's Democrat Governor, Jared Polis, even chimed in to thank the officers involved, a rare moment of bipartisan agreement that fentanyl is poison and it needs to be taken off the streets, and it's pouring into our country with zero mercy. And look, let's be honest here. This is a border crisis issue. This is a cartel issue. This is a failed federal enforcement issue. While Joe Biden's border stayed wide open, traffickers were shipping deadly drugs into our neighborhoods in bulk, just like these that showed up in this storage container, sometimes storing them right under our noses for about $100 a month. Kudos to the citizen who made the call and to the deputies who acted fast, but let this be a wake-up. The war on fentanyl is not happening overseas. It's happening on our streets, in our towns, and in our storage units that may just be right next door. So I was talking about Nancy Mace earlier, and Nancy Mace is not the only one making the national headlines right now. We have another South Carolinian, another South Carolina former politician, back in the headlines himself. Governor Mark Sanford, back in the news for the wrong reasons. The political press corps is having another meltdown. This one reads more like a late-night soap opera than anything resembling real journalism, real reporting. You probably remember Olivia Nuzzi, the political reporter who made headlines last year after it came out that she had been carrying on a digital romantic relationship with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. while covering him on the campaign trail. Now, she denied anything was physical. She claimed there was no physical relationship there. But the whole thing blew up her career at New York Magazine and blew up her engagement. Well, now her ex-fiance, these ex-fiancés can be rough. Nancy Mace is finding that out, and now this young lady is. He's a longtime D.C. reporter, Ryan Lizza, just dropped a bomb of his own. In a Substack post, Lizza claims that Ms. Nuzzi wasn't just tangled up with RFK Jr. He says she was also carrying on a romantic relationship with former South Carolina Governor and Congressman Mark Sanford. The Sanford that vanished to Argentina years ago on his hiking the Appalachian Trail trip that turned out to be something very different. I still haven't figured out how he got to Argentina via the Appalachian Trail. Wow. And I know I've told you this story before, but Mike Gallagher and I met with Governor Sanford in the governor's office just days after he came back from his hiatus, but before we realized where he had really been. And Mike and I both left that meeting comparing notes and thinking, Mark Sanford seemed a little distracted. Well, he was distracted because it wasn't but just a few days later when the world found out that he really wasn't hiking the Appalachian Trail, but he was in Argentina with his girlfriend. That's when all things blew up. Now, back to this present story. According to Lizza, he found a handwritten note spilling out of her backpack in 2020. It was a love letter with enough details to confirm the relationship, he said. And get this, he says she was secretly following Sanford around the campaign trail, sending risque photos and even rendezvousing at his home in South Carolina while telling her fiancé she was with her sick mother. Come on now, you can make up better excuses than that than blaming poor old mom. Folks, this is a political reporter covering the very people she was allegedly involved with. Imagine if a conservative journalist pulled that stunt. The media would be setting up a 24/7 command center outside of their home. But in this case, they don't appear to be too interested. Sanford hasn't commented, of course. Nuzzi hasn't commented. Vanity Fair, where she now works, is staying quiet, which tells you just how messy this probably is internally. Here's the bottom line. This is just another example of the political press demanding accountability from everyone except themselves, from everyone except their own. They're protecting her right now, and then they may turn on her tomorrow. But for now, they seem to be rallying the troops and circling the wagons to protect her. They lecture the country about ethics. They lecture everybody else about transparency, about integrity. But behind the scenes, if you believe this story, and there's no reason not to believe it, again, their silence kind of confirms it, doesn't it? It's chaos. It's all about their egos. And they're really not about reporting the truth. They're just about reporting what is sensational and what may sell the next copy of their magazine or their newspaper or their website or whatever it is their platform is. Meanwhile, the very people they cover, the candidates, elected officials, governors, mayors, senators, representatives, people running campaigns, they're the ones taking the heat for every word they say. But when journalists become part of the story, when they cross the lines they set up for everyone else, it's kind of like, well, you gotta live by these rules, but they don't apply to us. Suddenly, it's no comment. They don't want to talk about it. It's off the record. And that, folks, is the media culture that we're dealing with in 2025. This is what we've been dealing with for a while now, particularly from the media to the left. They're all a bunch of hypocrites. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, The folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. Well, folks, South Carolina's judicial world got a little interesting this week. You know, every year we have these races for judges at all different levels take place in the South Carolina General Assembly. In most cases, you and I never pay any attention to them. They're a big deal. There's a lot goes into them. A lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money. But in this case, and believe me, this doesn't happen often. You know things are getting interesting when a normally quiet Supreme Court screening turns into a political fireworks show, complete with questions about abortion rulings, retirement law loopholes, and whether a former House Speaker can just reinterpret state law to stay on the bench longer if he's elected. Only this can you find in Columbia, our state capital. So let's start at the center of the storm and what started this whole thing. South Carolina Justice John Few. He's been on the South Carolina Supreme Court since 2016. And for the first time in more than 20 years, a sitting justice is actually facing competition to keep his job. Typically, this doesn't happen. Typically, a justice on the South Carolina Supreme Court is not challenged. They run unopposed, pretty much for as long as they want to serve. Now, usually, again, these votes are kind of sleepy affairs, things that we don't hear much about. The legislature rubber stamps whoever's already wearing the robe. Evidently not this time, though. Justice Few is fighting to hold on to another 10-year term, and the reason for the challenge? It all comes back to one of the most hot-button issues of our time, abortion. Back in January 2023, Justice Few joined two of his colleagues in striking down the state's 2021 heartbeat law, the one that banned abortion once cardiac activity is detected, usually around the 6-week mark. A law the legislature passed, a law the Republican base strongly supported, and a law that took effect briefly after Roe v. Wade was overturned. But the court, in their 3-2 split, said the privacy protections in the state constitution made the ban unconstitutional, and Justice Few was the swing. Needless to say, the legislature, especially GOP leadership, was not very happy about this. They were not pleased at all. That ruling dropped just days before the 2023 session began, and it felt like the justices were rewriting the law rather than interpreting it. This according to some of the legislature. Conservative lawmakers blasted the decision, arguing that the court had stepped way out of its lane. Fast forward a few months. Republicans went back to the drawing board. They rewrote the bill specifically to address Justice Few's objections. You may recall I had Representative John McCravey on the show many times during that period, kind of walking us through the process, kind of interpreting what was happening for us. Legislature, they removed the language about the, quote, informed choice clarified that South Carolina considers life to begin at conception, and cleaned up old statutory leftovers from the Roe v. Wade era. And guess what? It worked. Justice Few flipped. Later in 2023, he helped uphold the new version of the law in a 4-1 ruling. So now, as he faces re-election, lawmakers are pressing him on why he ruled the way he did, first one way and then the other. He seemed to have flip-flopped. During this week's hearing, Senate Judiciary Chairman Luke Rankin read out an anonymous comment accusing Few of getting it right the first time before changing his mind. Few shot back that in nearly a decade on the court, he's voted to overturn a state law only once outside of a unanimous ruling, and that was the 2021 abortion law. He said that shows restraint, not political bias. Judge Few explained that the legislature's stated goals matter, and when lawmakers clarified those goals in the new bill, the constitutional equation changed. In other words, he didn't flip politically, he said. He flipped legally. At least that's his argument, and he's sticking to it. Now, here's the twist. Justice Few isn't just up against longtime judges like Administrative Law Court Chief Judge Tripp Anderson or Appeals Judge Blake Hewitt. He's also up against a very familiar face, a very familiar name in state politics, the guy who was the House Speaker at the time, Jay Lucas. Former Speaker Lucas, who spent nearly 8 years running the House, wants a Supreme Court seat, and he wants it with no judicial experience. That alone has raised some eyebrows on the screening panel. But what really caused sparks was Mr. Lucas's surprising claim that he wouldn't have to retire at age 72 like every other judge before him, which has raised a real question. Now, South Carolina law is pretty straightforward. Judges must retire by December 31st of the year they turn 72. Former Chief Justice Toll, Beatty, all of them in the past have followed that rule. But Speaker Lucas told the panel that the age limit only applies if he chooses to take the state's retirement package. And he says he intends not to take that, that he will decline the package and opt to stay on the bench. Senator Rankin looked like he had swallowed a bug or something. He flat out told Lucas his interpretation was wrong. The panel staff told Lucas he was wrong, that in a 2022 Attorney General's opinion said he was wrong. But Lucas doubled down anyway, insisting that he could serve all 10 years, even though he would be almost 80 years old by the end of the term. And here's the kicker. If lawmakers did elect Lucas and he refused to retire, the issue could land before the South Carolina Supreme Court, and Lucas himself would have to recuse himself. Imagine that courtroom drama. Imagine that you have one of your colleagues on the Supreme Court and you have to decide on whether to force him into retirement. Lucas did not back down, though. He argued that his decades in the House and his work as a practicing attorney actually make him more qualified than career judges. Now, that drew another raised eyebrow from the panel. After all, electing Mr. Lucas would mean removing a sitting justice and replacing him with someone who's never even worn a judicial robe. I don't know. Maybe it's not a bad idea. You tell me. Love to get your feedback. Text me, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. Should you have served in the capacity as a judge at another level before sitting down at the Supreme Court? Speaker Lucas doesn't think so. Yesterday, the Judicial Merit Selection Commission, I guess, agreed with him from the standpoint that they think he's qualified because they cleared all 4 candidates as qualified, sent their names forward. Now it's just going to be left up to the full General Assembly to vote next March. That's going to get pretty interesting, folks. This will be the first judicial election under new rules that allow the panel to send up to 6 names instead of just 3. So the legislature has options, and they're options that could reshape the highest court in our state. We'll see. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code JOEY. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.